Very few watches ever make it to the status to be considered a legendary watch within the watch community. In fact, two watch enthusiasts can make the argument if that watch is to be considered, but what's harder to make an argument is the fact that the watch is globally recognized. For instance, if I say F91W, that's right, you say Casio. Now wait, before you click off and say you've seen this review a million times before, we're gonna do something a little different here in that I'm gonna be making a small mod change to the watch. And I gotta be honest with you guys, I only added this to my collection because I did watch a bunch of reviews on it myself. But that also made me feel like it's a rite of passage to cover the watch at the end of the day. So without further ado, guys, let's take a look at it and see what we come up with. Okay, maybe that was a little bit over the top as far as an unboxing goes, but I thought it was cool. I wanted to try something different. I told you guys this would be a little bit different from what you've saw for this watch as far as a review goes. So my wife and brother giggled a little and they said that it was a little over the top, but that's okay. I rather liked it. Let's go over the specs and give some context to the watch. We're looking at 38.2 by 35.2 millimeters in shape, 8.5 millimeters in thickness. So when I first got the watch, I definitely wouldn't have been ready for it when I first started collecting. It would have been more on the smaller side. And I have a 7.25-inch wrist and about 46 to 46.5 millimeters of wrist width. So that's what you're looking at as far as comparison on my wrist. But as I matured as a watch collector, I've grown to appreciate smaller size watches. I have a couple of vintage watches in my collection and I've realized that watches don't have to be big and robust. That's just my personal opinion on it. But as far as the weight goes, we're talking about only 21 grams. A featherweight boxer in its class. As far as really needing something with heft in order to relate it to quality, I feel like this watch has really changed the perspective as far as that goes. I mean, there are people that have had this watch for 35 years and it's still holding up, it still works, and it may have some scratches on the crystal, but it's still functioning and it's still absolutely running. So as far as quality goes for weight, it's not to compare, and it's really nice to have something really light on wrist where you're gonna set it, forget it, and not even feel it on the wrist for that matter. The case material is where the watch finds its affordability. The band, the case itself, the glass, all resin. And that's pretty much the reason why they were able to keep the cost down after manufacturing the watch over such a long period of time. Now buyers beware, that glass is going to catch scratches most likely, and it is going to be noticeable. And I don't know if you're able to take it off with some poly watch. I'm not sure if that's how it works, but you can also expect the band to deteriorate over time. That's something that's very common, and it's hard to justify the cost of a new band to swap out. But you know, we're talking about a significant amount of time, a significant amount of wear to it before that happens, and it doesn't really take away to its classification of whether or not you should put this watch in your collection, in my opinion. And I actually opted to get a Vario leather strap for it. You know me, I have to change things up. Of course, I've got to mod the watch to some degree, and I also believe in investing in a watch, whether it's affordable or not, to switch things out and make it more personal. So I'm actually going to pick up a strap from Vario. I'll show you guys what that looks like here. You guys can decide if that is for you, but just be aware that you will have to pay note to those two things happening. 30 meters of water resistance. Now, here's the deal. From looking at some research and seeing what people have said and what they've experienced going back and forth, here's what I gather from it. I think the company is representing the watch to be only splash proof, right? So basically, like maybe a shower, washing your hands, maybe it's raining, that's all fine and dandy. I've worked out in it, sweat doesn't pass through, you're fine with that. Now, when it comes to taking a dip in the water, obviously you're not looking to do any deep diving with the watch, but I think that it's really just like a risk factor, right? Like some people have submerged the watch, they have gone with the swim with it, nothing too crazy as far as depth. And you've had people who've had water get into the watch, and you've had people who hasn't, and there has been people who've frozen the watch in a block of ice, thawed it out, not have an issue. So I think that overall, the company is really downplaying most of its capability just in case, because the QC is not going to guarantee you guys taking a swim with it. So it's at your own risk at that point. And I think that's how I would treat the watch myself moving forward. You know, if I decide to swim with the watch and water gets in it, I can't really be that mad, because at the end of the day, for the most part, it's advertised to just be splash resistant. Battery life, they say it's approximately 7 years, but they're definitely downplaying this. Like, if you're not messing with that backlight, if you want to call it that, we'll get into that. But if you're not messing with that and really, you know, messing with a lot of the functions, and that's going to drain the battery, I think that this battery is going to last a lot longer than that. In fact, my wife's father has had the watch for 30 plus years, and she's only seen him change the battery out twice. So I really feel like it's going to last a lot longer. And even if it doesn't, even if it lasts a little bit less than the 7 years, I mean, it's still 7 years that you don't have to change out the battery. So as far as a digital, as far as a quartz watch goes, that's fantastic. Set it, forget it, and not have to change out the battery too often. The watch comes with complication functions, including a stopwatch, an alarm chime for either a daily alarm or hourly signal for every hour that passes by. It also has a light function. Now, here's the deal with the light function, and you'll see a lot of reviews saying that the light is classified as weak, but I really found that, you know, if you're not using it in the daytime and you're using it dead of night, we're talking about pitch black, I could definitely read the screen as far as it goes. It's not going to be a kind of strength that you can have in between, but when it's pitch black, it definitely functions, and I don't really see them needing to change it, in my opinion. I think that it works and functions as far as its necessity. And, you know, instead of picking up the phone and having that backlight blast your eyes and possibly wake you up, you can just hit that function, have a weak light, and go back to sleep. Plus, in my research, I found that a lot of military active people utilize this watch, it being as affordable as it is. And the last thing you want to do in being behind enemy lines is having a backlight that's so bright when you check the time, if it is dark and you're doing some guerrilla warfare, and you have some snipers to worry about. You also have an annual calendar as far as the functions go, and that's on the main screen at all times, telling you the day and date. That only needs to be adjusted in February. You can either choose 12 or 24-hour format for regular timekeeping. From the hour to the minute down to the second, all displayed on the main screen for is where you could find it. AM or PM, and again, the date and day is also displayed for your convenience. All of which is achieved through Casio's movement inside the watch, which is the 593, and is plus or minus 30 seconds per month. Cost of the watch. Now, there are a lot of fakes out there, so trying to get a better bargain than the already affordable rate is not advised, at least by me, in my opinion. And I found it rather trustworthy to purchase the watch through Amazon. They have a Casio store that sells it for $14.19, or a G-Shock Casio store which sells it for $16.94. If that doesn't float your boat, you could always buy it directly off of the website, but you are going to pay more money, coming out to $22.95 of filming this review. Now, if the backlight and the water resistance kind of bug you, I'm me and you're you, so maybe you want an upgrade in that. There's a plethora of different models out there that are very similar. You're going to see a little bit difference in the thickness to achieve that water resistance in other models, but you could find a lot of models that are out there that are going to be very similar to this watch if you want to have the upgrades on those two in particular features. Now, in my opinion, the watch is definitely legendary, iconic, and well-renowned around the world, and it's easy to spot the looks of it. It has 3 buttons to operate all of the functions, and the first thing we're met with in the dial is that blue trim, which is probably the most eye-catching and most recognizable look to the watch as far as it goes. A very clear and refined Casio logo can be found at the top left corner, F91W on the right corner, both at the 12 o'clock, and the F91W is in that gold color, giving it that retro vibe, which is met by a dividing line just underneath it. A small red marker signifying the primary function of the corresponding button can be found at each 3 locations notation, and also a text to show you exactly what that button is used for. Alarm chronograph also in that gold text to keep with the retro vibe. And at the bottom, we are met with a water and a WR resistant to let us know that the water is splash resistant. Again, going back to the 30 meters of water resistance that we talked about. And again, it's at your risk if you decide to take this watch for a dip. When we flip the watch over, we're met with a polygon-shaped stainless steel case back that is raised in a circular fashion with a Casio engraving on there, some more text, which includes the movement and model number, the fact that it's stainless steel case backing, water resistance, and made in Thailand. All of which done by an amateur brushing, but I mean, at this affordability, we don't expect too much from that. The resin band is actually pretty supple out of the box. I was expecting it to be rather stiff, and because of its reputation of deteriorating over time, not to be that great, but it actually isn't that bad of quality. I mean, I don't expect it to last forever, but out of the box, it's pretty soft on wrist, and it does have arrows to indicate which way to push out those spring bars that are holding it together. And there are some other text included, but I don't have any idea what they signify. So yeah, let's move on. You're also getting a resin keeper, and at the buckle, you do get an engraving in the plastic of Casio's logo in its wording. And again, overall, I think that the band is actually kind of stylish. It has some design in it, nothing too crazy, but they could have just put it just a basic band and put nothing in it, more looking like one of the Apple straps. But there are some little cutouts and grooves and things of that nature to give it somewhat of a design. So I was actually surprised by that and rather impressed. So I decided to mod the watch in that changing the polarized film within the standard that comes with the watch. I removed the film that they have on there for a positive display, and I added a negative display, colorway being blue, and it's not perfect. That you could notice at the corners that it's not flush and you kind of get a little bit of a glaze on it, but that's okay. I'm not going to go nuts. The mod is good enough for me, and I don't want to change too much of it. I want to keep it as original as possible. I still want it to be recognized as the original watch that it comes in and just have a talking point to it. And plus, I'm changing out that strap like I mentioned before, so I think that's enough. I think I still want to keep things the way it is as close as possible. And if you're interested in how I completed the mod, I will make a separate video of me breaking down the module and completing this just to show you guys, but I don't want to include it in this video and make it too long. It's already been dragged out long enough, and I'm surprised you're still listening. Overall, I love the watch. It's a birth year watch, and it's not often that you can find one that's still being produced and getting one in brand new condition as far as it goes, with still keeping to the original theme unchanged over so many years. Stay tuned to the end if you fancy some bloopers and some trials and tribulations that I have making this video. And be warned, once you buy Square, you'll need more for the pair. And I found myself buying a couple of more Casios and a G-Shock to my collection, so I got. And remember guys, it all started with a watch, and in this case, an affordable, iconic, legendary watch. No matter how you decide to collect, no matter where your watch collection journey takes you, guys are all welcome on this channel and in this community, as you should be. I appreciate you guys for stopping in and checking out the OG review on this Casio. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Legendary type of... Very rarely does a watch ever make it to a legendary status in the watch community. Whether or not it is considered to be a legendary watch, because what you value may not be what I value, but what is hard to argue is the fact that was the reason why I purchased the watch, and it wasn't it was only after that I realized that the watch, damn it, to my collection, because just like you, I binge watch. And the watch that I have on wrist, no, it's not on wrist, and on my, it's not on my wrist. Few things that are different than from what I value it, right? But what's hard to argue is, oh man, dang, the struggles.